for the prime ministers or for the presidents to actually look good because they're representing their countries. And he was completely wrong about that, because I have yet to find any country that gives their leader, whether it be a president or a prime minister, any money at all to buy clothes. And certainly it doesn't happen in the United States.
Keir Starmer, the man who promised change and fairness, just dropped a bombshell that's left everyone stunned. After months of dodging rumours, Starmer has finally admitted to enjoying thousands of pounds worth of luxury freebies, designer suits, VIP concert tickets, and even a stay in a lavish Covent Garden penthouse, all while asking the public to endure tax hikes and budget cuts. Is this the leader who vowed to stand with the people, or has Starmer become the very thing he promised to fight against?
That you haven't, as a party, given us something more substantial to talk about, and that the first few weeks of Labour's government has all been about how bad everything is and not about what you're going to do about it.
Keir Starmer, once viewed as a politician who could bring real change, has found himself entangled in a scandal that's making many question his integrity. It all started with the revelations of his extravagant lifestyle, which sharply contrasts with the lives of the very people who voted him into power. The investigation into Starmer's use of high-end luxury items has unearthed shocking details about how he's benefited from an array of expensive gifts. Among the most eyebrow-raising are his £32,000 worth of designer suits and £2,485 glasses. These aren't just any gifts. They are luxury items most people can't even dream of affording, especially at a time when many Brits are tightening their belts due to economic uncertainty.
There's a trait Keir Starmer shares with Tony Blair: fear of Labour complacency. Finally, Keir Starmer developed a deep personal contempt for Boris Johnson.
What has struck a nerve with the public is the fact that Starmer's freebie spree isn't limited to clothing and accessories. He also admitted to staying with his family in a penthouse worth $2,437 in Covent Garden, a posh area of London. The catch? No money exchanged hands. Starmer explained that the stay was for his son's exam preparation, painting it as a necessity rather than a luxury. But this justification hasn't sat well with the public. They see a government enjoying the perks of power, completely disconnected from the harsh realities facing the nation. As this scandal continues to unravel, it paints a grim picture of Starmer's leadership, making it clear that his promises of change are starting to feel like empty words. The more the details of his lavish freebies emerge, the more the public's frustration grows. Starmer's credibility is on the line, and the British people are not likely to forget how far removed their leader's lifestyle is from their own.
He has accepted more freebies by far than anyone else, 2.5 times more than the second highest claimer of freebies. Now, what this table here is the top 10 MPs who've accepted the most in gifts, excluding legal fees.
As if the freebie scandal wasn't enough, Starmer's government has made matters worse with a series of tax hikes aimed at addressing a £22 billion budget shortfall. The reality of this decision has hit the British public hard, especially pensioners and low-income families who are already struggling to keep up with soaring inflation. These tax increases are seen as punishing the very people who can least afford it, and it has triggered a wave of anger across the country. What's making this situation even worse is the stark contrast between these painful tax measures and the luxurious lifestyle Starmer and his fellow MPs appear to be enjoying. The idea that pensioners are being left to struggle while politicians enjoy VIP events, free concert tickets, and luxury stays at high-end hotels has sparked outrage, and it's not hard to see why. Many people are asking how the Prime Minister can justify cutting crucial benefits like the winter fuel allowance for pensioners, all while accepting luxury suits and glasses from wealthy donors. It's a hard pill to swallow for those on the lower end of the economic scale who are already feeling the squeeze from rising costs. The anger is palpable, and it's led to growing protests across the country. Public trust in Starmer's government is starting to erode as people begin to question his commitment to the progressive ideals he campaigned on. For a man who promised to bring real change and a fairer society, this scandal has exposed a deep contradiction between his words and his actions.
But came across to help Keir Starmer to be his political eyes and ears ahead of the general election. She's used to be the head of ethics for the government, so she of all people should have a radar for what's right and for what's wrong. That's what's mystifying people.
Keir Starmer has built his political platform on the idea of a shared struggle, that everyone in the UK is going through tough times together, and his leadership would help lift everyone equally. But as the freebie scandal continues to unravel, it's becoming clear that his actions are far from what he preaches. While asking citizens to endure tax hikes and pension cuts, Starmer and his inner circle seem to be living in a bubble of privilege, enjoying lavish gifts and luxury perks that most people could never dream of. His rhetoric about fairness and equality is starting to sound hollow, especially when compared to his lifestyle. Many are now saying that Starmer and his Labour Party have completely lost touch with the struggles of ordinary people. It's not just Starmer's actions that are under scrutiny. This scandal has pulled back the curtain on a wider culture of entitlement within his party. Reports have surfaced showing that several of Starmer's top colleagues, including the Chancellor and Health Secretary, have also been accepting VIP tickets, designer clothing and other freebies. What was once seen as a party for the working class is increasingly being viewed as a party for the privileged, and this growing narrative is doing lasting damage to Labour's image. The hypocrisy is glaring, and people are starting to question whether the party's leadership truly understands the challenges facing ordinary citizens.
He told journalists this week, if I don't accept a gift of hospitality, I can't go to a game. You could say, well, that's bad luck. That's why gifts have to be registered. But, you know, never going to an Arsenal game again because I can't accept hospitality is pushing it a bit far.
Starmer's acceptance of expensive gifts and questionable donations is what's fueling public outrage. Among the most egregious examples is the £16,200 he received for work clothing, money spent on designer suits that put him in a completely different league than the average Brit. To top it off, there's the £12,000 he received from the FA Premier League, which covered VIP tickets to major events, including Taylor Swift concerts. These aren't just minor perks, they're extravagant luxuries that most people couldn't afford even once in their lives. Then there's Lord Wahid Ali, one of Starmer's major donors, who has contributed nearly £40,000 in freebies to the Prime Minister. The relationship between politicians and wealthy donors has always raised eyebrows, but in Starmer's case, it's particularly problematic. When you're in a position of public service, accepting these kinds of gifts raises serious ethical questions. How can someone who claims to represent the people justify accepting such lavish gifts from wealthy individuals and organisations? The public is left wondering whether these donations come with strings attached, and it undermines the very trust that people should have in their government.
Because we're going to build 1.5 million new homes. It's why we set up Great British Energy, to create good jobs and cut people's bills. And it's why we ended the national strikes that have crippled our country for years.
The real turning point in this scandal came when Keir Starmer admitted to accepting luxury stays and political favours during his campaign. The most notable example is his stay in a $2,437 penthouse in Covent Garden, which he claimed was for his son's exam preparation. The admission shocked the public as it highlighted just how far removed Starmer's reality is from the average Briton's experience. What family can afford to whisk their child away to a penthouse for exam prep? It doesn't help that this stay was facilitated by a political ally, making it seem more like a favour than a necessity. This admission has ignited a firestorm of conversations about transparency, ethics, and political accountability. Starmer's confession has drawn comparisons to past political scandals involving UK figures like Boris Johnson, who also faced backlash over similar issues of privilege and special treatment. However, What makes Starmer's situation even more striking is the contradiction between his progressive promises and his actions. People expect more from leaders who claim to stand for equality, and Starmer's actions are a stark reminder of the disconnect between what politicians say and what they do.
Inside the number 10 operation between the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, and lowlier staff in the Starmer operation and civil service is embarrassingly all over the newspapers. On top of that, the ground is being laid for a public spat with union bosses tomorrow.
The freebie scandal doesn't stop at Keir Starmer. It has dragged several other Labour Party MPs into the spotlight, painting a broader picture of privilege and extravagance at a time when the British public is being asked to make tough financial sacrifices. Chancellor Rachel Reeves and Health Secretary Wes Streeting are just two of the high-profile figures who have come under fire for accepting lavish gifts and event tickets. Reports have surfaced that they, along with other Labour MPs, were treated to VIP experiences, including tickets to Taylor Swift concerts and high-end hospitality at major events. These MPs are enjoying luxury, while many families are struggling to pay their bills and pensioners are facing fuel cuts. The timing couldn't be worse for Labour. The country is in a period of austerity, with inflation driving up the cost of living and public services under strain. For many Brits, it feels like Labour MPs are living in a different world, attending glamorous events and soaking up the perks of power, while everyday people are left to fend for themselves. The optics of Labour leaders indulging in these luxuries while simultaneously pushing for tax hikes and cutting benefits are disastrous. It gives the impression that Labour has strayed far from its roots as the party for the working class, and this is the kind of perception that can do lasting damage.
My government will serve you.
They won with big promises of change, stability after years of chaos.
Politics can be a force for good. We will show that.
But 100 days in,
This scandal could have long-term repercussions for both the Labour Party and Starmer's leadership. Trust is fragile in politics, and once lost, it's difficult to regain. If Labour is seen as a party that no longer understands or represents the average citizen, it could lead to disillusionment among its core voters. Starmer's leadership is already being questioned, and if more MPs are implicated in this culture of privilege, the fallout could be severe. The public's tolerance for hypocrisy is wearing thin, and this scandal threatens to alienate voters who were once loyal to the party. If Labour doesn't address this issue quickly and transparently, it could find itself facing a significant loss of public support. The public reaction to the freebie scandal has been one of widespread frustration and anger. Many people feel that Keir Starmer's actions, and those of his fellow Labour MPs, are a clear betrayal of the progressive ideals they campaigned on. Starmer promised change, fairness and accountability, yet the freebie scandal has exposed a massive gap between his words and actions. The British public is already dealing with rising inflation, higher taxes and cuts to essential services. Seeing their political leaders enjoy luxury perks at their expense has understandably sparked outrage. Protests have been growing, with people calling for more transparency and demanding that politicians be held to the same standards as everyone else.
This leader of the opposition, a former director of public prosecutions, Mr. Speaker, he spent most of his time prosecuting journalists and failing to prosecute Jimmy Savile, as far as I can make out, Mr. Speaker.
Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson didn't waste any time weighing in on the scandal, calling Starmer greedy for his love affair with freebies. Coming from Johnson, who has faced his share of controversies, the comment might seem ironic, but it nonetheless resonates with many Brits. Starmer has built his career on presenting himself as a man of principle, someone who would restore integrity to politics. But this scandal has painted him as just another politician who benefits from the system, while asking others to bear the burden.
To do what he's done in such a short space of time, to get people looking at the Labour Party again, was very, very difficult, but it was a necessary precursor to be able to have that permission to be heard now with his plan for the country. So, you know, I think it's so exciting. We're getting more and more of what Starmerism is.
The political divide is deepening as Starmer's actions continue to dominate headlines. For those who supported him in the hope of real change, his behaviour is seen as a betrayal. Many feel let down, questioning whether he is any different from the leaders he criticised. The public's discontent isn't just about the freebies. It's about the growing sense that their leaders are out of touch with the struggles of ordinary people. As this scandal unfolds, the trust that Labour needs to maintain its leadership role is quickly eroding. If Starmer doesn't act soon, this could mark the beginning of a significant shift in British politics, where voters may look elsewhere for leadership that feels more in tune with their everyday lives.